The Ryworx GA is a channel titanium balisong. Let me just turn on this light. Every time, I swear to God, every time it just blinds me. It clocks in at 4.59 ounces. So it's kind of on the upper mid weight. And my GA has this really gorgeous laser pattern. Pretty fucking mint condition. I actually just sold this. And like this sort of very nice subtle texture, as well as some really nice face textures. Ryworx is a knife maker in Japan, but he also makes pens, and apparently those pens kind of have a story with this knife as well. Thanks to everyone that has commented that GA apparently means moth in, I guess in Japanese, or maybe if it's just ga. I didn't ask further than that, but apparently these pens have an interesting story. I was talking to a guy named Mike Ward, and Mike was telling me that apparently, unofficially, it's like it seems to be maybe pseudo confirmed that if you buy Ryworx pens, you get kind of like the special priority when it comes to acquiring a GA. And so the thing about the GAs is, I guess they retail. I said that this was 1750. At least that's what I was told, and it is very probable that that was the value. But apparently the MSRP is closer to like 800-ish USD. Not entirely sure what it is in the yen, but apparently they're super fucking hard to get. And in order to get a GA, you need to buy pens. I know, it's weird, right? So apparently, if you buy Ryworx pens, you get a priority, and that gets you higher. And so when he does drops, and they're very rare and they're very few, knife per drop. If you are, even if you're like the first person to like send a buy request or whatever, if someone else bought pens, they would get a priority over you. And so if there are only 4 knives that are getting dropped and 4 people bought pens, I guess whoever bought the most pens gets priority, something like that. Or maybe there's a matter of time and speed. Kind of weird. And so I guess it's a compound of like pens on top of the MSRP of the GA makes the GA cost so much, as well as the fact that they are rare and they're actually quite good. Well, I guess we can talk more about the process of like how does this flip. Here, sorry about the pop filter. So the GA is a slightly handle bias ballast, albeit not an uncomfortable about. I would say that it's like more like the Volt Pro than say like the IBAS, where the IBAS is like real handle bias. Chorbit also did not fan very smoothly, but this does. It's got a bit of a nice ring to it too. And really good tolerances. I find that the GA is also incredibly comfortable to hold, and so there are major cutouts, but a lot of times I find that when cutouts are just large enough, there isn't really somewhere comfortable for my fingers to hold. But this doesn't have the problem, because even though these are like there's a large cutout shape, it's not so large that I can't hold. There's not like a surface for my fingers to press down on, and even with that, these holes are actually like really, really nicely chamfered. They're very comfortable. For example, the Depurge was, as much as I like Black Balisong, the Depurge handles were so fucking painful. I felt like I was holding, honestly, it was like sharper than some of the live blades I flipped. Just like those edges were just not comfortable at all. In general, there's also just a lot of really nice roundedness. There are no hard angles in the knife that I find uncomfortable. Sometimes the ends of the knife are very, well, they're just sharp. They're just pointy, and it's just like kind of annoying. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to sand titanium, especially if it's been anodized, The GA doesn't have that problem. And I just find that the surface is just, it's nice and it's grippy. The part here with lots of dots doesn't have these vertical lines that you can see running up and down the handles. But it doesn't really need it, so thankfully that's the case. The GA does not have any jimping, unfortunately. But that said, here, that was like the worst fucking, oh my god, my choker fans are bad. But with no jimping, I do still find that this is actually pretty decent to flip. Albeit, since it's like 4.6 ounces, it's a bit heavy. Thankfully, I don't feel like it's super slippery. Where I've flipped some titanium knives. I just dropped it right there. I flipped some titanium knives that are really slick, like Antarctic slick, and that's an aluminum. I like the aluminum Antarctic slick. But this thankfully is not too slick. It's got nice grip without feeling super uncomfortable. There are definitely knives that have really good grip. They're just not very comfortable to hold. Here, for example, is the Kanto Origin. This texture here is grippy, albeit it is just a bit coarse on my sensitive skin. And so I find that the GA kind of has this nice medium between subtle texture, but like comfortable to hold. Okay, hello. That's it. Yeah, it's a little tricky to do like a lot of infinite ladders on, just because no jimping and a bit of a hefty weight. Since it is slightly handle biased, though it fans still quite nicely with just a teensy bit of wobble. The rollovers though feel really nice, like really nice. So if you like rollovers, this is definitely a knife that is like, oh, it's so good for that. Now I really do like this knife, but I put a lot of money into it, and I didn't love it enough. It was like sort of a whim. I had the way it worked is I had a Phobos Horizon, and then I got 2 more Phoboses, which you might have saw. And so I still have one of those Phoboses, which is, I mean, it doesn't matter. I just pointed at it. So I still have one of these Phoboses. I sold another one, and well, it's currently still being sold. And this one I traded the Phobos Horizon, and I added some money on top. And it was like sort of a whim because, well, I did like the Phobos Horizon. I'm like, yeah, I've never flipped a GA before. I hear they're really good, and I think I can flip it. And I was like, I got a lot of comments that were like, oh, you got taken for a ride. Because it seems that the price of the GA is really up in the air, or at least the value of the GA, because it's almost definitely over 1,000, even though it MSRP's for like 800 or so. It's just so hard to get one that like, and they're in high enough demand that like the MSRP is, or the value of it is higher than the MSRP typically, but how much higher is up for grabs. And so like some people are like, wow, 1,750 is a lot, and other people are like, okay, that's not crazy, but I think I found another one for like 1,400. Again, this knife it's valuable. At the very least, it's definitely valuable. Thankfully, I did manage to find a buyer, which is really nice. And I'm excited because it helps me cover cost of this channel, which is another plug for the coffee in my description. Paying a couple bucks helps keep this channel afloat because I do these videos every day, and yeah, helps me just, I mean, I do this for fun, but it helps, you know. So I'm having a good time with this knife. I've had a good time, but I also was like so scared to flip it just because it's worth so much, and a single dent, oh my god, a single dent could like nuke the value of this. And so like I'm almost kind of too scared to do anything that crazy with it right now. But all in all, if you do want a knife, if you want a grail, honestly the GA is a really, really good flipper. If you like this sort of medium weight, it does have like a bit of a ring to it, but it does fan pretty nicely, and it rolls over exceptionally smoothly. I guess I can try and do an aerial, but yeah, easy. Can I do a parabolic? Let's find out. Kind of. That was not it, but that's okay. I'm gonna probably stop flipping this soon, but at the end of the day, Ryworx has a bunch of different products. There's the Omeme, which is a pretty nice knife, but it is on bearings, and I found it honestly not worth keeping in my opinion. I found it just didn't spark enough interest or joy. I've heard about the Setsuna, but I don't know much about it, and there's just a bunch of other knives that they make. It's kind of hard to tell because I feel like the Omeme is like worth 200-ish, whereas this is a much higher end product. It's honestly comparing like the Kraken to the Tsunami almost, where but this value goes much higher compared to the Tsunami. Honestly, I do think that while this is a really good knife and it is really, really, flips really well. It actually does. Um, it was just worth so much that I was just scared to flip it, and also I didn't really intend on keeping this. I was hoping I could trade this for a Damascus Genesis V3, which is something I'm still hunting for, or just a Jenny V3. I don't need it to be Damascus. There are very few of those. Or if I was lucky for an Idolo. However, I was talking to Mantis about how much he was charging for Idolos, and um, like months ago I was saying like, you could like charge more, and now he's charging more, and I'm like, damn, I wish I got one before he charged a bunch more. So like he's like the current value of this one Idolo with this very interesting like sort of shoe bill beak. I don't really know how to fucking describe it, but that one's like 2,700, which is it's a full grand more than this, and I already sank a decent amount of money. Granted, I'm cashing out at least a little bit, enough to pay for another knife, not like a much more expensive one. Well, not definitely not more expensive than this, but I am actually at least like able to like. I'm sinking a lot of money in this hobby, so I was hoping that I could cash this out or at least trade for something I like, and yeah. So I guess for other things in the price, this is a really good one. If you can get one for around $1,000, honestly, that would be an insanely good price. I shit you not. Anything for around 1,000 is a really good price on the GA. Is it worth that much money? I mean, it's hard to say. Like I really like the Phobos and I really like the Zyzix, and so like those are also like $1,000 fucking. It's a lot of money. A lot of people consider knives that are $300 to be grail. Hell, if $100 knife is a grail to you, I don't blame you. There's, the money's a lot, but this thing is, it's a lot of money, and it is really good. But personally, while it is on par with some of the other knives that I have, such as the Zyzix and the Phobos. I would say in terms of the quality, in terms of the flipping, um, this one didn't spark anything special for me, and I know that I was at least hoping that I could cash this out. So yeah, if you're a collector and you can find one for a better price than that, go for it. I honestly, I should have done more research about when I first acquired this. I could have possibly gotten a better price, but I don't think I would have necessarily landed it. But all's well that ends well, I guess. Frankly speaking, also it seems that the GA has different blades. This one's like a Bowie, but I've seen some that are different. I feel like there are at least 3 blade shapes, and I couldn't tell you how they flip. And I certainly am not going to acquire another GA anytime soon because holy shit. But yeah. Uh, should you get a GA? If you have a lot of money to spend, that's where I'm at. Because it's really good, but there are definitely other things that are much, much cheaper that are like if you want just a good flipper, there are so many things that are way cheaper. But if you want this beautiful collector's item, hard to get your hands on, and it's a great flipper, yeah, maybe the GA is worth adding to your collection. But certainly not for the faint of heart or the shallow of pockets. So yeah, I honestly feel like I don't really have much to say about the actual flipping besides it's good. It carries momentum. It fans mostly evenly. It is handle bias, and despite it being a Bowie, I don't feel a lack of tip weight. I feel like the balance is intentional. It doesn't feel like it's slightly handle bias. Like oh dear me, no. It feels like yeah that's what they wanted, and it's good. Anyways, if you like this video, give it a like. Check out the unboxing video where I have probably more thoughts on the flipping, at least while I'm discovering my feelings about the knife. And check out the rest of my channel. Subscribe and look at the coffee in the description. Helps me keep the channel alive. But happy flipping. Bye.